Hi, I'm Jeffrey Watts. I'm the lead CNC specialist on Team 1710. This here is our CNC machine. CNC stands for Computer Numerical Control. This is where we manufacture a majority of the parts we put on our robot. We mainly cut parts that are two-dimensional. They're usually flat, in simple words anyways. But here, in order to turn it on, you come over here, twist this till it goes up. The knob is even with on. And then you go over here and you press this button that says power on. And as you can see, you'll begin hearing some funny noises. That's just the machine starting up. This is your control panel. This is what you use to, operate the machine. You've got all these buttons here. And the big ones you really need to keep mind of are X, Y minus, X, Y, X, Y, Z, all over here pretty much. This is what allows it to be controlled pretty much and maneuvered where you want it to be. Right now, at the beginning of it, it asked me basically if I wanted to reference my point. You have to do that at the start of every single cut pretty much. That basically allows the machine to reset. And as you can see right now, the machine's moving back to 0, 0 basically, which allows it to be reset and make sure there's no any errors in its thing. While we wait for that. So as you can see now, I don't want to find you this. You could come over here, you press X, Y plus goes up, X plus it goes to the right. Same thing with X, Y. You can see the machine moving as you press it. If you want for the machine to go down, it goes Z minus and Z plus. Anyways, this is where we manufacture most of our parts. I've referenced that previously. Big safety things wise, while you're cutting, make sure you don't have any long hair coming down. This thing is spinning at a rate of 15,000 rotations per minute, sometimes even 17,500. It's insanely quick, but it needs to be able to do that in order to cut the pieces. I recommend, and this is a recommendation, you wear long sleeves if you're cutting anything like aluminum. It can get pretty hot, and the flying shrapnel coming off the piece can sometimes hit your skin and burn you. And it can be extremely unpleasant. Things to keep mind of when you're checking your stuff. This is your 0 tool. Basically, when you're setting up your piece, you put this on top of it, make sure the bit is right underneath it, and you press Shift and 0. That will make it 0. It'll start going down slowly until it hits something, and that'll let it know what its height is, pretty much. Safety rule of mind, if anything goes wrong during a cut, you automatically just press escape. It's this, we'll come back over here, red button. This is the holy grail of CNC. Very important, red button. If you need to make a change during a cut, but you don't want to stop the program altogether, you press pause. And let's just say the CNC machine begins blowing up and the control panel doesn't work. If you look over here on the panel, on the main control, there's this thing that says emergency stop. You hit it, or from what it looks like, twist it as well. So this is what the machine uses to cut. This is called a drill bit, or you can use it on many of the other machines, but this one is mainly specified for CNC. What you'll do is, if I have my parts in the right location, is you'll take a wrench and this tightening tool basically that is used for putting on bolts, or for bits. Anyways, you'll come here, and if you notice, I can't really show you this easily, but on the bit in the middle of the thick part pretty much, there'll be a K is what it looks like. You're going to line that up with the thing and put it in there. My recommendation is before you start using the tools, you tighten it to a point where the bit stops moving up and down. Then you bring your wrench, you put it in here, and you tighten. And voila, your bit's ready to go. If you need to take it off, you're going to do the exact same thing, except put it in like this, the opposite way. My recommendation, you take 2 hands and you squeeze pretty much. The first seal will break, and then there's a second seal, and this is to make sure it doesn't fall out when it's cutting. This one's a lot more easier to break. It's just rudimentary. Make sure when you're putting in the CNC bit, make sure it is tight all the way. You don't want it to fall out pretty much. When it comes to stock, the tooth, there's 3 or 4 main types of stuff you'll be cutting. It's going to be either acrylic, polycarb, aluminum, or steel. Types of bits vary on the material cutting. This is for polycarbonate. It's a lot weaker and it's a lot more brittle, but it doesn't heat up as much. Just make sure when you're cutting the stock, make sure you have the right bit for it. Speaking of stock, make sure it's mounted down. I don't have it ready right now, but come over here, we have a bucket of screws. We use these screws to mount the stock down to make sure the pieces don't go flying while we're cutting them, because that would not be fun. There's 3 main cuts on a CNC. There's bores, there's contours, and there's pockets. Bores are for cutting holes into the stock. Those holes allow you then to mount it into the stock, and you can also put screws when you're putting it on the robot pretty much. Pockets cut out the big holes pretty much, not the entire perimeter, but like the holes within the frame of the piece you're cutting. And then contours is the final part, and it cuts around the piece. Basically, it's the final thing, and it cuts it out completely. Your size of bit will also usually determine what kind of cut you're doing. If you're using a 1/8 bit or a 3/16 bit, typically you're going to be cutting bores. If you're using a 1/4 inch bit, however, you're mainly going to be doing pockets and contours. It also depends on the size of what you're cutting. If you're cutting something larger, you want to use a larger bit so it'll go quicker, because if you use something smaller for a larger cut, then it's going to take a very long time, and not to mention, there's a chance it breaks, because it's a lot of strain on the CNC bit. When you're cutting aluminum or you're cutting steel, the bit can often get insanely hot, and it can get to insane temperatures since you're cutting metal. When that is the case, and whenever you're cutting aluminum or something that gets really hot, if you look on the left side of the machine to it, there's this knob right here. This activates the fluid, and if I turn it on right now, it blows here. And this basically allows you to cool the bit and also cool the piece at the same time. And then this is a great example of what your bed should not look like when you're getting ready to do a cut. You have pieces everywhere, strewn stuff everywhere, stuff that's basically in the way of the machine. So when we're doing an actual cut, what you'll most likely should do is bring the bits over here to your table, away from the bed, make sure everything's gone, and you should be good. And this is what it should look like, ideally with a piece of stock. Do not touch the CNC while it is spinning. Your hand will come off, and it is not fun. The other half of CNC machine is the programming part, because we also work in Fusion 360, which basically allows us to communicate with the machine and program it and tell it how to cut, pretty much. That is a whole different thing and will require separate documentation.